we are consistently told that legalizing abortion doesn't actually reduce the number of abortions. Usually, we are misled by right-wing, white male, bigoted Christian extremists. But now, we actually have proof that legalizing abortion actually decreases the number of abortions. The pro-lifers should really be supporting more funding for abortions if they were truly against it.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Abortion rates across the United States have plunged to their lowest level since the controversial Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision in 1973, according to a new report. The report by the Guttmacher Institute, a research group that supports legalized abortion, Planned Parenthood President Cecile Richards called it proof that giving women better access to contraception is paying off with fewer abortions. It shows that we're finally doing a better job of helping women get access to birth control that's affordable and that's high quality, she said.
That's great news. You know it's going to be credible and not biased in any way.
Planned Parenthood President Cecile Richards, the report by the Guttmacher Institute, a research group that supports legalized abortion.
Not a chance. It's fake news.
Freaking idiot.
U.S. abortion rate at lowest recorded point. It has the words lowest, recorded, and there's a graph, so you know it's correct. But to make sure my logic is correct, let's double check and ask my evil, identical, white male twin brother, who happens to be a statistician. Okay, Roe v. Wade was passed here. And if this caused decrease in abortions, that means the line would go this way. Ooh. But the line went this way, which is increasing, not decreasing. Then, 40 years later, it was at the same levels before. This does not prove that this decreased abortions. It's actually circumstantial evidence that it helped increase them. But it is, and by no way proof, as I will show later, okay?
Planned Parenthood President Cecile Richards called it proof that giving women better access to contraception is paying off with fewer abortions.
Oh, you are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
But my evil, white, identical twin brother actually came to a completely different conclusion. He looked up the abortion rates through a longer time period to see if there are other possible explanations that could explain the trend. He pointed out to me that the abortion rate began drastically increasing starting in the mid to late 60s and continued through into the 70s. The trend didn't even budge at all during 1973. It continued going. But starting in around 1980, it started to slightly decrease into current time today. But what could have possibly happened during the 60s and 70s that resulted in more unwanted pregnancies?
Oh my God.
What?
You're from the 60s.
Well, yeah, actually.
Ow, hey! Back to the 60s.
Wait a
back.
second.
There's no place for you here in the future. Get back while you still can.
You've changed. You know that?
Yes, I suppose I have. How about this? Peace, love, dope. Now get the hell out of here!
I can't even comprehend what my evil brother is suggesting. that the more promiscuous women are and the more sex they have, the more unwanted pregnancy there will be. It is almost as though he's suggesting to women that if they don't want to get pregnant, the best way is to not have sex.
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser! Good. More for me and you.
People can somehow let themselves get so close-minded in their own views that they essentially turn off their brain and reject anything against their narrative and accept everything when it fits their worldview. It's liberal, so it's right. It's conservative, so it's right. It's progressive, so it's right. The other side's wrong, I'm right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
You need to be aware of your own biases and not rely on this type of thinking. You need to look at each side of the argument, the empirical evidence for both, and come to your own logical conclusion from there. I mean, even look at the bottom writing. It's almost as if giving women control over their own bodies and teaching kids about birth control helps eliminate unwanted pregnancies. And in the top right, it says, "You think?" with a question mark. And it has hundreds of thousands of people that not only believe this is true, they think the other side is stupid because they don't think it's true.
Think about that. That's just dumb.
Some of you watching might be thinking, aren't you overreacting a little bit? It is clearly a very flawed study and nobody would take it seriously. It's just a Facebook post. I would never personally accept something so obviously false. I mean, I'm intelligent enough to know that increasing's increasing, decreasing's decreasing. But I got this idea because somebody on my Facebook posted it that has a graduate degree in statistics. Please take a minute and either laugh or cry. And now that this information's out there, just watch what happens next.
So you may have heard earlier this week that the Guttmacher Institute released statistics indicating that abortion has actually decreased significantly in the U.S. Now, the right wing has used this information and they've twisted it in a way to suit their political agenda. Contraceptive use improved during this period as more women and couples were using highly effective, long-acting, reversible contraceptive methods such as the IUD. Moreover, the recent recession led many women and couples to want to avoid or delay pregnancy and childbearing.
According to a new report from the Guttmacher Institute, between 2008 and 2011, the national abortion rate declined by 13%. So that puts 2011's abortion rate at 16.9 abortions per every 1,000 women of reproductive age. That's the lowest rate recorded since Roe v. Wade was legalized the procedure in 1973.
We know that comprehensive sex education combined with access to contraception and the knowledge about what to do with it is how you reduce unintended pregnancy and thus how you reduce abortion. Republicans, conservatives, religious rightists, they say they want to reduce abortion, but then they oppose comprehensive sex ed and access to contraception. Well, the abortion rate is at an all-time low. And it has nothing to do with attempts to, quote, ban abortion by the religious right and Republicans. It has everything to do with better and increased access to birth control. U.S. women are having abortions at the lowest rate since 1973, which is the year of the decision Roe v. Wade, which legalized abortion. The abortion rate has been declining for decades. Let's take a look at a graph about this. And as you can see, since reaching a high in roughly 1980 is what it looks like according to this graph. Blinded by the light, wrapped up like a deuce, another runner in the night. Blinded by the light.
This graph is actually perfect because it distinguishes between above 1973 levels and below 1973 levels. The bill was passed, and the abortion rate was higher almost the entire time, and it eventually came down to about the same rate after 45 years. This graph is something I would use to manipulate pro-life people, because the bill passed and then see the line went up. So you really don't even need to change the graph. All you need to do is change one word in the title to historic low, and then that's what people get out of the article. Elected officials in our government will be given this information, and they will think to themselves, clearly policy A caused a decrease, so clearly we need more of policy A.
USA Today says a new report this morning finds the abortion rate in this country dropping to its lowest level since 1973. That's when the procedure became legal. In 2011, the rate fell to an average of 16.9 abortions for every 1,000 women between the ages of 15 and 44.
But they conveniently leave out the fact that the bill was passed in 1973, and then the abortion rate went way up the next 7 years. It actually doubled in that time frame. But Roe versus Wade causes abortion rate to double in only 7 years. That's not a very progressive headline. It's much more progressive that, oh, this bill was passed, there's a slightly decreasing trend since 1980, and now it's at a record low since the bill was passed. Yeah, that fits our narrative better. That's what I get from this data set. They're also conveniently leaving out that before 1973, it was also much lower. I could have done a very similar type of analysis, just the converse, and only looked at this graph from 1973 to 1980 and showed it to pro-life people. Conveniently leaving out that in the 60s and 70s, the trend was very similar to this trend, and it's because more people were having promiscuous sex. The passing of the bill, Roe versus Wade, seemed to have no effect on the abortion rate. But it could have just taken a few years to take into effect because the young women needed to become more educated. So it really took a few more years after the bill was passed to have it start working.
Oh, okay. I see what you did there.
Next up, The Guardian. U.S. abortion rate is lowest since Roe v. Wade, but contraception access may go. Study finds strong indication contraception access linked to abortion fall. Republican Affordable Care Act repeal would end easier access to birth control. The decision helped, but now it's going to be gone. Oh no. We have this beautiful, brilliant study that shows birth control is amazing and reduces abortions, but those evil Republicans are going to repeal it and they hate women. This is how social justice warriors are made. Meanwhile, you haven't even read the article and judged the analysis based on its own merits. But critical thinking is not allowed when it comes to fake news, liberal propaganda. Your mind is already made up before you even read the article. That's kind of what you expect from The Guardian, though, but the New York Times also came to the same conclusion. The Washington Post also cited this same study and came to the same exact conclusion. Researchers identified two main factors during the down of the incidence of abortion. The first is a drop in the rate of unintended pregnancy, driven primarily by an increase in the use of long-term contraceptive measures, like IUDs, that are highly effective. That sounds good to some people, but that's not what the data is telling you. Even The Economist is not susceptible to all this nonsense. You can read the entire article in the description below, but the conclusion, the last paragraph the journalist came up with, Mr. Trump has also vowed to overturn the Affordable Care Act, which among other things provides cheaper contraceptive choice to women. Only 16% of America's households live below the federal poverty line, but half of all women who had an abortion in 2014 did. They are the group most likely to benefit from the ACA. Culture warriors may rejoice if affordable contraception and access to abortion services are restricted further, but the consequences could be to reverse a trend that has been on the decline for decades. The beautiful part of statistics is, nothing in that paragraph is technically not true. Even that last sentence, culture warriors may rejoice if affordable contraception and access to abortion services are restricted further, but the consequences could be to reverse a trend that has been on the decline for decades. It possibly could be that restricting affordable access to abortion services somehow increases abortions, I guess. I don't see how that could logically be. I think a more acceptable argument would be the women would want to do it anyway and it'd be unsafe, but that's just me. But he said could, so it's technically not false. And the last part, reverse a trend that has been on the decline for decades, which is also true. But this is a deliberate deception to make you feel that you're on the side of reason and fact. The Economist wrote this, it's very statistical. This is clearly what's happening. I have two possible theories about why people believe this, and I'm not sure which one it is. The first one is journalism, ethnic studies, gender studies, sociologists, psychologists. These are the people that go into writing articles, and they perform statistical analyses and interpret the results, which is scary. So they confirm their own bias, because you can find data that supports what you think, and apparently you could find data contradictory and it still supports what you think. They write the article, it spreads through the progressive social media hemisphere like wildfire, and then everybody thinks it's true now. That's the first theory. Second theory, the politicians, leaders, and media figures know this is crap, but they know they could easily manipulate people, and they do this to get more power and wealth. This method for manipulation is very easy. Rely on the stupidity and the ignorance of the masses.
And so the women who are marching on Friday, I think it is, I want to give them some really great news, which is abortion is down, lower than it was when Roe v. Wade began. It's at its lowest.
And then simply give them what they want. I, as a statistician, could tell you exactly what you want to hear in the exact same words you want to hear them. So do that to the general public, appeal to their emotion and their worldview, and they'll accept whatever you say and will be on your side. Put a catchy phrase, make it seem positive, they believe it, run with it, hundreds of thousands of shares. Now if you don't agree, you're a hateful, ignorant bigot that's against progress. There's a word for this, and it's called propaganda. I'm going to play that same clip I did earlier that proved that more funding to abortion actually decreases abortion. Play close attention in spotting why it's fake news so you could recognize it in the future.
Abortion rates across the United States have plunged to their lowest level since the controversial Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision in 1973, according to a new report. The report by the Guttmacher Institute, a research group that supports legalized abortion, Planned Parenthood President Cecile Richards called it proof that giving women better access to contraception is paying off with fewer abortions. It shows that we're finally doing a better job of helping women get access to birth control that's affordable and that's high quality, she said.
The first obvious thing is the happy, upbeat, preppy music. This gives your brain a psychological response that you expect something good and happy to come before the information's even given to you. Your decision is already made up before they give you any information. The second thing is to pay attention to the obvious bias. We have a pro-abortion statistical analysis being interpreted by Planned Parenthood. Whatever comes next, you should think the opposite of what they tell you. And modern-day feminism and social justice activists are full of this manipulation. The main targets of this brainwashing are people who are young and gullible and have a strong desire to be for a cause, for people, they care about people, they want the world to love each other. These are the main targets of this propaganda. And they purposely use arguments and words, plus they know how to lie with statistics. Think about why you believe it, find empirical evidence to support it, and then come to a logical conclusion. And please, for the love of God, if you've looked at a statistical study, make sure a statistician did it. A good hint of that is that they would never say prove something like this. A statistician should never be wrong. It's always evidence, could, probably, the chances of. It's never proof. Correlation does not equal causation, and negative correlation for sure doesn't equal causation. These are the main tools of liberal propaganda fake news. What do you mean you're not for equality? People who aren't against equality are bigots, therefore you're a bigot. What do you mean you're not for diversity? People against diversity are bigots, that means you're a bigot. Indians and other Southeast Asians are over 10 times more likely to go to medical school than people who don't identify as a color are, aka white. This is a horrific social injustice that needs to be corrected immediately in the name of diversity, togetherness, equal representation, equality, inclusiveness, diversity. Say diversity twice, because it's that important. We need to find a way to get rid of all these brown people, and we got to get in these other people that are people of different colors, because I care about people's races, because we need to not care about people's races.
I don't find anything faintly resembling an even representation of people in any institution anywhere in the world, broken down by any way. There's been a recent study of military forces around the world in which they can find no country in which the military force represents even approximately the ethnic composition of the society. Sometimes the poorer groups are overrepresented, sometimes underrepresented. There are all kinds of factors there. Well, what's amazing to me is that this notion that people would be evenly represented except for these institutional policies, that notion has had such momentum behind it without a speck of evidence being asked or presented.
Top tech companies, from giants to startups, are committing to make their technology workforces look like America.
Without a speck of evidence being asked or presented.
Picking selective fields where you want to make it look more like America is not just illogical, but actually counterintuitive. Most family-owned pizzerias are Italian. There's almost no Mexican families starting pizzerias. That does not mean that pizza is discriminating against Mexicans. Taco trucks are almost completely dominated by Mexicans. That does not mean that tacos are discriminating against Italians. There could be a form of discrimination, but you need to bring evidence for that. You can't just assume, since there's a statistical disparity, that there is discrimination there. And I want to find the discrimination as much as anybody, because I either want the most delicious tasting pizza, or I want the most delicious tasting taco.
¿Por qué no los dos?
But I don't necessarily want a Mexican to make a pizza just for the sake of making a pizza, and an Italian to make a burrito for the sake of an Italian making a burrito. The same exact argument goes for the tech industry. I want the best technology, and I don't really care the gender or the race of the person making it. And the funny thing in this case is that Asians dominate this industry. But it's not very progressive to say we have too many Asians and we need more white people. A more progressive thing is to say there's too many men and not enough women, so we need more women. We'll ignore race in this case because gender fits our narrative.
If you look at Asians in the United States who get PhDs, and here we talk about a select group, you find that they're outnumbered about 3 to 1 by Hispanics who get PhDs in history, but they outnumber the Hispanics 10 to 1 in chemistry. That nowhere do I find this even spread of people that you look for. And I think the reason is very simple, that human beings are not random events. That we all have histories, and there are values that come out of those histories, and we have things that we want to do and things that we don't want to do.
Top tech companies, from giants to startups, are committing to make their technology workforces look like America.
Because diversity.
Including by publishing data on diversity each year and developing the tech talent of people from all backgrounds.
Because diversity.
We're very happy for the commitments that they've made, so give them a big round of applause for that.
Because diversity.
Liberal, manipulative, fake news, propaganda. Just hidden as the quest for diversity.